Breathless. Forbidden, Book 2. Written by Susanna Thompson. Narrated by Lauren Sweet. Chapter 1. I already felt homesick, but I tried to absorb some of the excitement of the other students. Embracing my independence should have been as thrilling for me as it was for all the other freshmen here. We were free from parental rules and restrictions, and we had been let loose with thousands of other people our age to roam this huge campus. Boston University was everything that I had imagined college would be. I had moved into my dorm last week, so I had been able to acclimate myself before school began. My roommate seemed like a nice, considerate person, and I knew that made me lucky. I could have been placed with someone who wasn't so easy to live with. Logan was also going to college nearby, and that helped a lot to lessen my loneliness. My roommate, Cade, had stared at him like he was an actual movie star. She had assumed that he was my boyfriend, and she couldn't believe that I wasn't madly in love with him when I told her that we were just friends. "What are you looking for in a boyfriend?" she questioned incredulously. "He goes to Harvard and he looks like that? What more could you want?" My mouth compressed in bitter remembrance of my last boyfriend, but I kept my voice even when I spoke. "I'm not looking for a boyfriend. I enjoy being single." "Ah," she responded. "You're more into playing the field." I didn't correct her misconception. "Yeah, so many guys, so little time," I commented blithely. She laughed in delight. "I'm gonna live vicariously through you. I've been with my boyfriend since middle school, so I missed out on dating other guys." "Middle school?" I repeated incredulously. "Wow, that's—" I trailed off, at a loss to describe it. "I've never known anyone who's been together that long," I added with envy. "My friend has been with her boyfriend for 2 years, and they're still in high school, but they didn't get together until sophomore year." My mind drifted back to Morgan's crazy plan to use Blaine in her quest to get with Logan. She had been blindsided by the feeling she hadn't wanted to admit she had for Blaine. Sex had changed everything between them. She hadn't been able to walk away indifferently from him afterwards the way she had planned. They had been together ever since, and Morgan had found the happiness with him that she had hoped for with Logan. I was relieved that things had worked out for her after I had expected it all to end in disaster. She had become such a romantic optimist, though, and I was glad to get away from her matchmaking attempts. I knew that she just wanted me to be as happy as she was, but I had refused to date anyone after my breakup with Cade. "I'm focusing on me," I had insisted, using the one argument that she would have to agree with. "That's good," she had acknowledged. "You deserve to pamper yourself after everything you've been through, but you eventually— Do you want to go to the spa again this weekend?" I had cut in. "Or is Blaine giving you a massage?" I teased, making her blush while distracting her from my non-existent love life. I had embraced all the luxury that Cade had accused me of coveting. The first time I saw him again after he moved out of his dad's house had been on the family vacation Robert had promised us before he caught us together in Cade's bedroom. Robert took the precaution of sharing a room with him, but he needn't have bothered. There was no way I would be sneaking into Cade's room after the things he had said to me the last time I had seen him. I made a point of flaunting my expensive wardrobe and jewelry in his face, even going so far as to wear the Tahitian pearls his dad had bought me. It soured the sweet memory of the day I had received that necklace, but I wanted to ruin all my good memories of Cade so that I wouldn't yearn for him to be like that again. I could tell that seeing the necklace got to him, and I felt the satisfaction of taking a long, overdue jab at him. He recovered too quickly, though, as his lips curled into a sneer.
Did Logan buy out the jewelry store? I can't even tell which one is your engagement ring,
He said, gesturing toward the rings on my hands. You got engaged? Mom exclaimed. No, I answered, with the annoyance I was feeling toward Cade. I bought these myself.
Oh?
Cade inquired.
With your own money?
I smirked at him. With your dad's money. I rubbed it in.
It's good to see you showing your true colors,
He remarked with disdain.
I always knew you were a gold digger. Cade!
Robert reprimanded him sharply.
Apologize to Lexie. Why should I?
He retorted.
It's true. You will not speak to her that way.
Robert exploded.
Apologize or you're going back to...
No, I pleaded urgently. Just let it go, Robert, please. Don't let him ruin our vacation. I've never been on vacation before. Please, let me enjoy it.
But he doesn't have to be...
I interrupted Robert with a plea that overrode common sense. Don't send him away because of me. I don't care what he says about me. I just want to enjoy our vacation.
One more comment like that,
Robert warned Cade.
and you'll be on the next plane to California.
It seemed that Cade didn't want to miss out on this family vacation because he didn't make any more disparaging remarks to me within earshot of our parents. He probably missed spending time with his dad. I attributed my own contrary desire to have him on this trip with us to my wish to aggravate him while I had the chance. There was nothing more to it than that. I had no other reason for wanting to see him. All that remained of our brief relationship was antagonism toward each other, but it didn't detract from my excitement over this trip to Florida. Robert had let me choose the location, and I had decided on something closer to home rather than a tropical island in deference to Mom's condition. Her morning sickness had abated, but she was 4 months pregnant. Her doctor had assured her that she was fine to travel wherever she wanted, but I didn't want to take any chances. Robert had been surprised that I chose Florida over Hawaii or the Caribbean. I had reminded him that I had never been anywhere, so Florida was paradise to me. It turned out not to be an exaggeration. The hotel we were staying at was insanely luxurious. We had a 3-bedroom suite that was 2 levels with stairs, like in a house. Not a grand staircase like in Robert's house, but we had an upstairs in our hotel room. We also had a real kitchen that we weren't using because we were eating at exclusive restaurants where I had spotted a celebrity. Our opulent bathroom had a jacuzzi tub, a separate shower, and dual vanities. The suite had 3 big screen TVs, floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room overlooking the beach, and a dining table that could seat 8 people. Having become accustomed to living in a huge mansion, this hotel shouldn't have impressed me as much as it did. But I gaped in astonishment when we first entered the suite. I blinked at Robert when I realized that he was calling my name.
Lexie,
He repeated again.
your mom wants you to decide which room you want.
Oh, I responded as I came out of my daze. Okay. As Robert turned in expectation that I would follow him, I noticed Cade watching me with an unreadable expression. In that instant, I forgot everything else as I got lost in his dark gaze. I stared back at him until his dad's voice snapped me out of it. I'm coming, I called back. When my attention turned back to Cade, he had an angry look on his face.
Don't try any of your tricks,
He warned.
You better not make my dad get pissed off at me again,
He said as he crossed the distance between us. I didn't plan any of that, I retorted. So,
I'm coming,
he interjected in an imitation of someone about to reach sexual climax. My face flamed at the sound of the moan in his voice. I didn't say it that way, I argued.
Lexie,
I jumped at hearing Robert's voice sounding closer and hurried to him so that he wouldn't catch me with Cade. Not that we were doing anything besides talking, but I still hadn't completely recovered from the shame of Robert seeing me topless in Cade's bed. Only the light of the TV screen had illuminated us, and Cade had quickly blocked me from view, but it was mortifying to be seen like that by my stepfather. He had blamed the entire thing on Cade and never said another word to me about it. Robert had continued to treat me like a daughter, and it was only my own embarrassment that had made me feel awkward around him for a while. I didn't see him that much anyway, since he spent so much time at work. At first, I thought that he was avoiding me after what happened, but his cook, Lauren, had made a comment to Mom about Robert returning to his workaholic ways. Mom had lamented about him being late for dinner again. "Don't wait for him," Lauren advised. "Cade never did, and you're pregnant, so you shouldn't wait so long between meals." Her words made me imagine Cade eating dinner by himself every day, but that wasn't so different from me when my mom was working 2 jobs. Her shifts as a waitress varied, but I often ate dinner alone. I wasn't going to make excuses for Cade's behavior, although I did wonder why he was so heartless sometimes. If only that cold heart wasn't encased in such a beautiful body. If only I didn't still fantasize about alternate scenarios in which Cade hadn't been such an asshole to me. Even during that vacation, my mind was playing out scenes in which we were still a happy couple, enjoying the gorgeous white sand beach together. I imagined holding hands like the young couple I had seen walking barefoot along the shore. After stealing glances at Cade in his swim trunks on the beach and at the pool during the day, my fantasies about him became much more erotic when I was alone at night. I had caught him looking at me too, his eyes skimming down my bikini-clad body, and that also played out in my fantasy. Robert was sharing the master bedroom with Cade in order to keep tabs on him at night, but I wouldn't welcome him into my room anyway after the things he had said to me when he had been forced to move to his mom's house. My mom wasn't sharing a room with me because Robert wanted her to be comfortable in the queen-size bed in her room since she was pregnant. I would rather have died than be caught in a compromising situation with Cade again, but that didn't prevent me from imagining making out with him. When I saw him again for the first time after our angry parting, I had been dismayed to realize that there was still an attraction between us. I had always been attracted to him, even when I had hated him, but now I knew that his antagonism toward me masked his own unwanted physical attraction to me. My plan to be cold and indifferent toward him had immediately proved impossible for me to pull off. Yet he also hadn't ignored me either. By the last day of our vacation, the tension between us was so thick that my awareness of him was stronger than it had ever been. Nothing could distract me from his presence in my vicinity, even when I wasn't looking at him.
So, how's school?
He asked in an unexpectedly polite tone. I glanced at him in surprise. It's good. How's how's school for you?" I stammered. In, um, California,"
It's okay.
he replied.
We've got a good team, but I'm not on it.
He added with the beginning of a scowl.
You'll be on it next year.
Robert assured him confidently.
You made me let down my team.
Cade retorted angrily.
If they don't win the championship, you let down your family.
His dad told him. "Robert," Mom exclaimed, while I reeled in shock from his harshness toward his son. "That's a terrible thing to say," she continued in outrage. "It's not true," she spoke kindly to Cade. "You and Lexie just made a mistake. We've gotten past it, and everything will be fine."
Yes,
He agreed, adopting that polite tone again.
You've gotten me out of the way so that Lexie can marry Logan, and you can all live happily ever after.
You're an idiot! I exploded as I stood up out of my chair in my agitation. I told you we're just friends. He doesn't even want to ever get married. But if he did, he would marry Julia because she's his Marion. And even Morgan finally realized it. But you're too stubborn to listen to anybody, and I don't even care what you think anyway. The murmurs around me made me remember that we were in a fancy restaurant, and I had just made a scene. I slowly sat back down as heat flared in my cheeks while Cade smirked at me.
His Marianne?
He inquired.
What does that mean exactly?
Marion, I corrected him. It's from Indiana Jones.
Ah,
He responded in comprehension. Who is Julia? Mom questioned. A girl in my grade, I replied. She's really popular and she's a musical prodigy. Logan is in love with her.
he told you that?
Cade asked skeptically. He implied it, I said.
Which means you assumed it.
He stated with a wry smile. It's true, I insisted. I know he's in love with her.
Just like you knew that he liked Morgan.
He commented dryly. He does like her, just not in the way I thought, I admitted.
Yeah, people can get the wrong idea sometimes.
He agreed, his gaze dropping down to his plate. Have you made friends at your new school? Mom asked him in concern. He lifted his eyes to study her.
A few.
He answered vaguely. She appeared to be unsure if he was just saying that, or if he really had made friends. Oh, what are they like?
They're fake and shallow. But, you know, money talks, so they pretend to like me.
I bristled at his underhanded dig at me, but Mom looked genuinely troubled by his answer. You'll find real friends once you get to know more people, she told him. Try talking to people who aren't in that clique. He was watching her so closely that I could tell he was trying to read her. It should have been easy for him, because my mom was an open book. But he didn't trust her, so he didn't believe that she was genuine.
You're an athlete,
Robert commented.
you'll have no trouble making friends.
Common interests can help, Mom agreed. But it's not always easy to make close friends you can confide in.
What does he have to confide?
Robert asked dismissively.
He's a normal kid. He doesn't have anything to hide from anyone.
I'm talking about his feelings, Mom said. Adolescent angst.
That's what girls talk about.
Robert said.
Guys talk about sports and girls.
Guys have feelings too, Mom argued. Everyone needs someone to confide in.
Who do you confide in?
Cade asked her. She looked distinctly uncomfortable as her gaze slid away from him while she speared a piece of asparagus with her fork. Well, friends, she replied uncertainly. And your father, of course. And I've always had a diary, too. Cade appeared to be startled by that.
A diary.
He stated with a bewildered expression. Mom blushed in embarrassment. I know it sounds silly for someone my age to keep a diary, but I find it helps me to organize my thoughts. And you can write down wonderful memories, too, she rushed on. Do you have a diary from when you met Dad? I asked excitedly. Now I was suddenly the one making her uncomfortable as her gaze slid away from me. I'm not sure. It's been so long since I looked at my old diaries. I might have lost some of them when we moved.
Do you have a diary, Lexie?
Cade questioned me. No, I answered distractedly, my focus still on Mom. See if you can find it when we get back. I can't believe you never told me about this before. You know how much I love to hear about Dad. I'll look for it, she promised, still seeming uncomfortable talking about it. I guessed that she probably didn't want to talk about my dad too much in front of Robert, so I dropped the subject. Well, Cade changed the subject.
Who do you confide in, Lexie?
He asked me. Morgan, I replied. You, I added silently as I looked at him, until you turned on me for no reason.
Morgan is a nice girl,
Robert said.
as I recall. Cade dated her sister. What happened with that?
He asked Cade.
She turned out to be selfish and shallow,
He replied. Sounds like you're perfect for each other, I remarked. Lexie, please, Mom pleaded, but Robert laughed.
I told you she'd bounce back,
He told her.
Cade, you need to follow Lexie's example and stop moping. Yeah, but she wasn't kicked out of her house,
He retorted.
I could have sent you to military school,
Robert reminded him.
You were lucky to be able to move in with your mother.
You don't like living with her? Mom asked anxiously.
Mom's not the problem,
Cade answered.
I just didn't think it was fair for me to take all the blame.
He's right, Mom told Robert. Lexie was just as much at fault as...
Lexie is an innocent girl,
Robert said obstinately.
You said yourself that you never had any problems with her, whereas Cade, she's not that innocent.
Cade cut in. Robert's eyes narrowed at him. His voice was tight with anger.
Did you?
He couldn't seem to ask the question.
I'm not the one who took her virginity,
Cade relished telling him. Mom and Robert both stared at me as heat suffused my face, and I felt like I might pass out from shame. I couldn't look at them, and I dropped my gaze to my plate as I wished that I could disappear from their view. I realized that my reaction had confirmed the truth of Cade's words, but I hadn't been prepared for him to reveal something like that to our parents.
I guess she didn't confide that to you,
Cade taunted. I couldn't take any more, so I shot up out of my chair and nearly collided with a waiter as I ran for the exit. The intensity of my humiliation was out of proportion to what the situation warranted. I actually felt worse than when I had been caught in bed with Cade, but it took me a while to figure out why. So Robert's illusions about my innocence had been destroyed, and my mom knew that I'd had sex. She couldn't exactly throw stones at me when she had done the same thing at my age. I wasn't thrilled about disappointing them, but that wasn't why I was so upset. It was because Cade had made me feel like a fool. I'd been lulled into thinking that we had both agreed on a truce during this vacation. We didn't like each other anymore, but it hadn't felt like we hated each other either. We had even been having a civil conversation before his abrupt betrayal. Cade caught up to me on the sidewalk.
Where are you going? You can't walk to the hotel from here.
Leave me alone, I demanded, without slowing my angry pace.
Don't make them come chasing after you,
he said as he matched his stride to mine.
They're waiting for you in the car.
I'm not going anywhere with you, I retorted. I should have let your dad send you back to California. I can't believe I talked him into letting you stay.
Why did you?
He asked. I must have forgotten what an asshole you are, I said bitterly. Thanks for reminding me. But that was low, even for you.
I got sick of my dad treating me like the bad guy while thinking you're some kind of angel,
he said. Well, the next time I want to make myself look better, I'll tell him how you got your ex-girlfriend pregnant, I retorted.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't have said anything about your virginity,
he acknowledged.
Listen, I've had some time to cool down, and I want to hear the truth from you,
he told me. Oh, now you want to talk to me, I retorted sarcastically. I haven't heard a word from you in 2 months. You said all those awful things to me and dropped me just like that. It's a little late to talk now. I don't care about your apology anymore.
I wasn't apologizing,
he stated.
You can't blame me for thinking that you set me up. Think about how it looks to me. You come into my room and start having sex with me, and the next thing I know, your mom's got my dad barging in on us.
I didn't know she'd come looking for me in the middle of the night, I replied in exasperation. And I didn't come there to have sex with you. I just wanted to talk. You're the one who started kissing me.
You kissed me back,
he reminded me.
and you didn't say anything about wanting to talk.
I got carried away, I admitted. I forgot why I was there. He smirked at me in response.
I told you that you wouldn't want to stop. I can tell that you still want me.
He added, his voice becoming seductive as he stepped closer.
I've seen the way you look at me. You think about that night a lot, don't you, Lexie? About finishing what we started.
He wasn't wrong. I did often imagine a different conclusion to that night, one in which we weren't interrupted by our parents. Yet that wasn't something I was going to admit to him after how he had treated me. I hardened my voice as I answered him. You're the one who finished what we started, Cade.
Yeah, maybe I overreacted.
He allowed, in the unconcerned tone of one who had made a minor mistake.
It just really sucks that we got caught. But I'll get my mom to work on my dad about letting me move back home.
If that's what you want to do, I said. But don't bother because of me,
But that's what you begged me to do.
he exclaimed in consternation. Before you called me and my mom pros, I replied bitterly. You showed me how much you cared about me,
I thought you were playing me.
he said in a defensive tone.
You still could be, for all I know.
I'm not doing anything to you, I told him. We're done. His eyes narrowed at me.
You've got a new guy?
He demanded. I almost rolled my eyes, but annoyance made me snap at him instead. Yes, I sure do.
Who is he?
He questioned angrily.
Cade, Lexie, get in the car now.
Robert shouted, his voice firing at us from the direction of the curb. I immediately obeyed, simply because it meant walking away from Cade. He followed me, of course, and sat beside me on the back seat. I ignored him, and Robert quickly stopped his interrogation of me.
Shut up, Cade,
He snapped, sounding like his patience had completely run out.
Leave Lexie alone, or you'll never go on vacation with us again. It's not like I'm part of this family anymore anyway,
Cade grumbled. Of course you're part of this family, Mom assured him as she turned to look at him. I deliberately sat behind her so that I wouldn't be in her line of sight unless she completely turned around in her seat to look at me. Robert had to keep his eyes on the road since he was driving, so there was less awkwardness for me in his line of sight. I had also guessed correctly that he would avoid turning to look at me. This situation was just as awkward for him, but it seemed like he was more upset with Cade than me. My mom hadn't said anything to me either, but I knew that she would as soon as we were alone. When we had discussed what had happened between Cade and me, I had told her that we hadn't had sex. She had probably assumed that I was still a virgin, but now she knew that I wasn't. It was something that she would want to talk about, and I wasn't looking forward to it. At the moment, her focus was on Cade. You'll always be part of this family, she told him. Nothing will ever change that. He looked at her with a pensive expression.
Do you really mean that?
Yes, she exclaimed. We are your family, Cade. Your family has expanded, but you're still an important part of it. Your baby brother is going to need you to—
Brother?
Cade interrupted her.
It's a boy?
Yes, she answered with a glance toward Robert. He glanced back at her before returning his attention to the road.
I forgot to call and tell him.
How could you forget? She demanded, sounding angry.
I had a lot to get done at work before this vacation.
He replied. Then you should have told me to call him, she admonished him. He shouldn't be the last one to know.
It's only been 2 weeks since we found out,
Robert retorted. You should have told him, she insisted. From now on, I'll keep him updated on everything.
Thanks, because Dad would forget to tell me that the baby was born,
Cade remarked. He remained moody, but silent after that. I escaped to my room as soon as we got back to the hotel. But Mom came in to have that private talk I was dreading. "When did it happen?" she asked. "It was when I was with Lucas," I answered. "And he's the only guy I've been with, so you don't need to—" "Lucas?" she cut in. "He was your first boyfriend. You were only 15. Would you stop yelling?" I pleaded. "I don't want everyone to know how stupid I was." "I didn't say you were stupid, but I thought I loved him," I interjected, my own voice raising in agitation. "I thought he liked me too, but it was a bet. He made a bet that he could sleep with me, and then he dumped me after he did." "Oh, Lexie," she said. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." "It was really romantic and special," I told her, with all the bitterness I still felt about it. "There were rose petals and balloons." There was anguish in her expression as I spoke, but I only felt anger. "Lucas Klein really knows how to act like a gentleman, and I was stupid enough to fall for it." I left out the part that really burned me, that I had thought I had found a love like she had with my dad. "I'm so sorry," she repeated. "I wish you would have talked to me about it. You weren't stupid, Lexie, but you were naive and foolish. Lucas was very charming," she acknowledged. "So I understand how he fooled you. That's why you should wait until you really get to know someone before—" She apparently couldn't speak aloud what I had done. "I waited 3 months before I had sex with him," I said, making her wince. "What is the safe amount of time to wait so you know he's not an asshole?" I pressed her. "Your wedding day?" she responded with a hopeful expression. I snorted. "You were in high school when you had me, and I've done the math with this pregnancy. You got pregnant before your wedding day." Her face flushed in embarrassment, but her direct gaze didn't waver from mine. "I know that I haven't set a good example for you." "No," I fervently interrupted her. "That's not what I meant. I know you didn't date anyone for years after Dad died."
Cade,
We heard Robert yelling outside my door.
what the hell are you doing? Get away from there!
Mom rushed to open the door, and I was right behind her. We saw Cade standing so close to the doorway that it was obvious he had been eavesdropping on us. He had only half turned to face Robert, who looked furious. "What's going on?" Mom asked unnecessarily.
What are you doing?
Robert demanded of Cade.
Sarah said that I'm part of this family.
Cade answered him. "So you're spying on us?" I questioned angrily. I was mortified to think that he might have heard how easily Lucas had tricked me. He turned to look at me, his expression hard rather than mocking.
If anyone messes with you, you tell me, Lexie.
"Nobody is messing with me," I replied in confusion.
Is everything all right?
Robert asked. "Everything's fine," Mom answered him.
You heard her, Cade.
Robert said.
Give them some privacy and go pack your things. We've got early flights in the morning.
From the rigid set of his jaw, I expected Cade to argue.
Okay.
He agreed, to my surprise, beginning to walk away obediently before turning back to face us.
It was good to see you again, Sarah. Thanks for letting me go on vacation with you.
"Oh," Mom replied. "Of course we wanted you to come with us,"
I know it was you who got him to let me come.
he told her.
Thank you.
I stared at him as I watched him show what appeared to be genuine respect and gratitude toward my mom. He had been polite to her before to her face, while saying mean things about her behind her back. But there was now a gravity to his demeanor toward her that I had never seen before. "Your father wanted you to come too?" she insisted uncomfortably, looking toward Robert for help.
Of course, son.
He agreed gruffly.
You threatened to send me back on the first day.
Cade reminded him.
If you would behave yourself, then—
"Never mind," Cade interrupted him.
That's over now. I need to talk to Lexie for a minute. Cade,
Robert said his name like a warning.
Just to talk.
Cade stressed. On the balcony, Mom ordered. We'll be watching you from inside. She added to my embarrassment, like I would have sex with him out on the balcony where people could see us. I don't want to talk to him, I argued.
Lexie, please.
Cade begged.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't sure which of his many transgressions he was apologizing for, but I didn't care. I have nothing to say to you, I huffed.
Please.
He begged again.
I have something to say to you.
Let him talk to you for a minute, Mom urged. We're leaving in the morning. I relented to her reminder that he would be out of my face soon. Okay, just for a minute. I strode toward the balcony, and Cade pulled the door open for me before following me out. He slid it closed again as I turned to face him impatiently. He smirked at me to my further annoyance.
I'm surprised you don't have a stopwatch set to 1 minute,
He remarked. Just say what you dragged me out here to say, I snapped.
I'm sorry.
He responded in a sincere tone with a sincere expression. I snorted. Great. Now everything's forgiven.
You have a right to be mad,
He said.
but you promised not to give up on me.
You're the one who gave up on me, I retorted.
I was wrong,
He replied. Yes, you were, I told him as I stared him down.
Lexie.
He began, his expression softening.
We have something special.
Yeah, what you said to me was special, I replied sarcastically.
I told you I'm sorry,
He said in an impatient tone.
What more do you want from me?
Nothing, I said. I don't want anything from you. You said what you wanted to say, and now we're done. I turned to walk back inside, but the urgent tone in his voice stopped me.
Wait,
He pleaded.
you can't say we have nothing. You know it's not over. Don't try to tell me you don't feel it too, because I know you still feel this connection between us.
We had one date, I countered. We never even got to go on a second one before you accused me of faking my feelings for you. A smile turned his expression playful.
So you admit you have feelings for me.
I refused to be charmed by him. Had, I told him. I liked you, but now I don't anymore.
You're lying,
He declared.
You begged my dad to let me stay here. You wouldn't have done that if you didn't like being around me. I know you miss what we had, and I do too.
We had one date, I reiterated. There's nothing to—
But it was a perfect date,
he interjected. I've had perfect dates before, I retorted. It doesn't mean anything.
Rose petals and balloons,
He said darkly, confirming my suspicions that he had overheard me talking about Lucas.
That asshole is gonna pay.
His threatening proclamation startled me. What?
Nothing,
He replied.
Let's just forget everything else and get back to where we left off. I won't let anything ruin it for us again.
You ruined it, I reminded him. Yeah, your dad sent you to live with your mom, but you broke up with me. That's where we left off, so there's nothing to get back to.
I want to get back together,
He told me. Well, I don't, I said. I'm not going to deal with you going hot and cold on me. I knew what you were like, and I still made the mistake of going out with you. Well, I learned my lesson, and I am not going to make that mistake again.
It's not a mistake,
He insisted in sudden anger.
You're just being—
My own anger flared, and I forcefully cut him off. What? A bitch? This is exactly what I mean. 1 minute you're asking me to get back together with you, and the next you're calling me a—
I didn't call you anything.
He interrupted me in exasperation.
I was saying that you're being stubborn. You won't admit that you want to be with me because you're still mad about—
Be with you? I cut him off again. Let's be realistic, Cade. We don't even live in the same state anymore, not to mention that you're my stepbrother. It was never going to work out anyway, but I just hate the way you ended it. We could have at least still been friends, but you had to ruin any chance of that." He stepped so close to me that he was completely in my personal space.
"We could never be just friends, Lexie."
He said, before the sound of the balcony door being whooshed open announced the hasty arrival of my mom. "What are you doing?" she asked in an accusatory tone.
"Talking."
Cade replied, as I moved away from him and toward my mom. "We're done," I announced, meaning it in more ways than one.
"For now."
Cade said. "Forever," I retorted.
"That's realistic."
He remarked dryly. He got the last word, because I had no good comeback to that. In an attempt to avoid him for the rest of the evening, I opted to take my shower last. Since I assumed that everyone would stay in their rooms for the rest of the night, I stepped out of the bathroom dressed only in the luxurious white robe provided by the hotel. I halted at the sight of Cade leaning against the wall in front of me. My pulse jumped from more than being startled by his unexpected presence. His heated stare was the same one I remembered from that night in his room. It brought back the memory of those kisses and the feel of his skin against mine. He pushed himself forward off the wall, and my heart beat faster as he came closer. My awareness of my nakedness beneath the robe spiked with his nearness. It didn't help that he was shirtless. "What are you doing?" I demanded in a breathless voice that betrayed the effect he was having on me.
"We're not done,"
he said, his own voice sounding unsteady with desire as he reached out to lift the soft belt hanging from my waist. His gaze moved back up to my face.
"I can't stop thinking about you, Lexie."
I was expecting Robert to interrupt us in the next instant, but he didn't. I guessed that he was asleep, and that Cade had managed to sneak out of their room to come down here with me. It was like a scenario from one of my perfect vacation fantasies involving Cade, and I probably would have let it play out if we were still together. Maybe even if we weren't, had our breakup been amicable. But it hadn't. Cade had hurt me, and I wasn't going to let him do it again. He changed his opinion of me too easily for me to be able to trust him. It also wasn't worth taking the chance of losing Robert's and my mother's respect over a guy who had treated me like I meant nothing to him. As he leaned in to kiss me, I sidestepped him. "Leave me alone," I said, and hurried away from him.
"You want me too."
He insisted as he followed me. I stopped at the entrance to my room and turned to face him. "Leave me alone or I'll tell Robert. He'll send you to military school." His determined expression changed to disbelief.
"You'd do that to me?"
"Only if you don't stop trying to." I gestured toward his bare chest instead of finishing my sentence.
"Tempt you?"
He suggested with a smirk. I fixed a hard gaze on him. "We are done." It was an imitation of his cold attitude toward his ex-girlfriend, and it worked on him. All traces of humor vanished from his face. He stared at me before his expression became unreadable as he settled his features into an impassive mask.
"That's how you're going to play it?"
He inquired in a neutral tone. His ease of changing moods was hard to copy, and frustration cracked my icy demeanor. "It's not a game, Cade. This is impossible, and you're impossible. I can't do this."
"But you want to."
He pressed, his emotionless expression dissolving into eagerness. "No!" I answered in exasperation. "I can't deal with you, Cade. You're not going to jerk me around and use me whenever you feel like it. I'm not falling for this again."
"You want proof?"
he asked.
"I'll show you that I mean it."
"Show me what?" I asked warily.
"You'll see."
he promised.
"Good night, Lexie. I'm going to go dream about you until I can have you for real."
His gaze intensified as he spoke, and his eyes traveled the length of me and back up to my face before he sighed and left me standing there all hot and bothered. As I went into my room and closed the door, I was imagining him taking off my robe and looking at me with that heated gaze. Even after I went to bed, I was still longing for him to kiss me. It was so different seeing him in the morning. He was polite but distant, like he hadn't been trying to get me naked last night. It confirmed what I had said about him using me whenever he felt like it, but it hurt to feel like I had been tossed aside again. I was so glad that I had stuck to my resolve and not given in to temptation this time. At least I had been able to walk away with more dignity than I had with Lucas. Lucas, however, would have difficulty walking for a while. I received a newspaper clipping about him a month after the vacation in Florida. There was no return address on the envelope, and nothing inside it except the brief article from my hometown paper about the attack on Lucas Klein. His assailant had been wearing a ski mask and had broken Lucas's leg while beating him up. He was believed to have martial arts training, but the police had no motive for the attack. Nothing had been stolen, and the assailant hadn't spoken a word to Lucas. After staring at the article in shock, I called Cade. I still hadn't deleted his number from my contacts. "Did you do this?" I asked after he answered the phone.
Do what?
He questioned. "This," I emphasized by motioning with the article I had clutched in my left hand like he could see me. "Did you beat up Lucas?"
Who's Lucas?
He asked. "Rose petals and balloons," I said. "I know you heard me talking to my mom. Did you break his leg?"
I don't know what you're talking about.
He replied smoothly. "This is crazy," I exclaimed in agitation. "You could be arrested."
So you only care about me getting arrested.
He remarked.
Not about this person.
"You can't go beating people up," I exploded.
Lexie,
He said, his voice so warm and soothing that it took the edge off my frazzled nerves.
I'm waiting for you, Lexie. I'm waiting until we can be together in college. Promise me you won't date anyone else either.
I felt weakened after the adrenaline rush of panic I had just experienced. "Did you steal my mom's diaries?" I questioned in a seemingly random way, but it was all connected in my now crazily tilted world.
Your mom's diaries were stolen?
He inquired. "Cade," I pleaded, "what are you doing?"
Don't worry. I'll fix everything.
He promised.
Just wait for me, Lexie.
I had no intention of waiting for him, even after my mom's diaries were returned as mysteriously as they had disappeared. My suspicions that Cade had been the one to take them were confirmed in my mind when he showed a warmth toward her that he never had before. Apparently, he now knew that she wasn't a gold digger just after his dad's money. His methods were still wrong, and I resolved not to be drawn into his web again. His visits to see his dad became more about spending time with the baby brother he obviously adored as much as I did. Noah had my mom's blue eyes, and he was the cutest thing I had ever seen. It was easy to share the joy of him with Cade, and the happiness Noah brought into the house erased any concerns I'd had about Cade's visits. There was no tension between us, and he didn't try to be alone with me. The Lucas incident faded from my mind as time passed, and I heard nothing else about it. I still thought that Cade was responsible for it, but I had no proof. If he thought that he could prove he cared about me by beating up my ex-boyfriend or paying someone else to do it, as he had most likely paid someone to steal my mom's diaries, he was wrong. All it proved to me was that he thought he could get away with anything. It sure didn't make me trust him. But I let it go, since he wasn't that big of a part of my life anymore. My life at home with my mom, Robert, and my baby brother was wonderful. School was hard, but I strived to do my best and put in more effort than I ever had before. It paid off, and I got accepted to Boston University and could go to college near Logan. Robert had argued that I should be at Harvard Business School if I was majoring in business, but I had refused to even consider it. I hadn't wanted him to pull any strings to get me into Harvard. I hadn't mentioned Boston when I listed the colleges I was planning to apply to, so I was sure that I had gotten in on my own merit. Robert was paying my tuition, but at least I felt like I had earned my place there. I had no idea where Cade was going to college until I saw him at Boston. When I answered the knocking on my dorm door after my first day of classes, I was at first only surprised to see Cade. "What are you doing here?"
I live here.
he replied. "You... what?" I asked in dismay.
3 floors up, he clarified. Why didn't you let Dad get you one of the suite dorms? You could have had your own room.
"You go here?" I exclaimed. "Why?" Robert had mentioned that Catherine had opted to pay Cade's tuition, and I had assumed that he was going to college in California. It had never crossed my mind that we might end up at the same college. We had never discussed it at all in the past 2 years of seeing each other during his visits home.
I told you we could be together in college,
He said.
I've waited for you, Lexie. And Morgan told me that you've waited for me, too.
"Morgan?" I exclaimed in disbelief. "She knew about this? I can't believe her."
Don't be mad at her, he pleaded. She just wants you to be happy. She told me how you refused to go out with anyone else. I haven't either, Lexie. I've been waiting for the day when we could be together again.
"That wasn't because of you," I declared. "I just didn't want to go out with another asshole. I wasn't waiting for you."
Lexie,
He chided me.
we're adults now. Stop playing games and admit the truth.
"Here's the truth," I retorted angrily. "My life doesn't revolve around you. I moved on a long time ago. I'm sorry if you didn't, but that's not my problem. If you would have told me about your stupid plan to follow me here, I would have told you not to bother." Irritation crept into his expression, but his tone was smooth when he spoke.
I've heard this from you before, Lexie. From the first time we talked, you acted like you couldn't stand me. But that wasn't the truth.
"It was," I insisted. "My first impression of you was the right one." Even as I spoke the words, I knew they weren't entirely true. Cade did have some good qualities, although he wasn't the best choice for a boyfriend. I almost faltered when I saw his hurt expression, but it was quickly replaced by a smug smirk. Besides, he had said worse to me, I reminded myself.
Well,
He said.
since your body always likes me before you do, I'll have to start there.
I ignored the little thrill that shot through me and scoffed at him. "Get over yourself." "I have," I taunted. He smiled with the confidence of a guy who knew how attractive he was.
You can be over me, under me, all over me. It all sounds good.
I rolled my eyes. "That's the best you've got?" He grinned at me. "What?" I demanded.
You're flirting with me.
He said. A movement behind him caught my eye, and I saw my roommate turning back to the direction she had come from. "Katie," I called out to her. She stopped and half turned toward me. "Oh, I'll come back later." "No," I exclaimed. "Stay. He was just leaving."
Hi, I'm Cade.
He introduced himself to her as she stood uncertainly several feet away from us. "Hi," she responded, finally coming closer. "I'm Katie,"
It's very nice to meet you.
he said.
You're Lexie's roommate?
"Yes," she replied. "It's very nice to meet you, too." "No, it isn't," I said. "Go away now, Cade. Don't come back."
Don't be jealous.
He admonished me.
Katie won't try to steal me away from you.
"Oh," she exclaimed in dismay. "I would never." "Don't listen to a word he says," I told her. "He's an idiot." Her disconcerted gaze flitted from me to Cade and back again. I just remembered that I need to uh, to go away, Cade," I snapped loudly at him. "You're not chasing away my roommate."
Okay,
He agreed in amusement.
you can come up to my room instead. I'll kick out my roommate for you.
"Go," I commanded as I raised my arm and stabbed my finger at him for emphasis.
You don't want to come?
He asked, his tone and expression making the innuendo clear. Katie blushed in embarrassment, and I glared at Cade.
Another time, then.
He said with a smirk, before finally leaving. But he was still in the building, and on my mind. And he would be here at this university with me for the next 4 years. I grabbed my phone to call Morgan and vent my frustration on her. I was now too riled up to feel lonely, but I certainly wasn't happy about this situation. She was going to get an earful from me. Cade, however, was going to get nothing from me. He was expecting this to be as easy for him as it had been before, but I wasn't going to let him burn me twice.